So I have to say, y'all, I am losing my goddamn mind. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind because I've been watching the right melt down over the existence of Zoran Mamdani since he got elected. And they call him a terrorist. They call him a jihadist. They say stuff like, we forgot 9/11, as they post pictures of the towers on fire and falling down. And their whole thing is like, holy shit, any Muslim is a terrorist, right? You have Zoran Mamdani, who's, a democratic socialist who wants to freeze the rent and, give people childcare, and they smear him like he's in Al-QAEDA. That's what I've been witnessing. Now, at the same time that that's going on, that so many Republicans on social media are leaning into disgusting smears like that of Zoran, you know what else is happening? Trump is welcoming literal Al-QAEDA into the White House. So take a look at this. This is Trump with the new Syrian president, I use that term loosely, al-Jilani. This is the guy a militant who overthrew Bashar al-Assad. This guy literally was in Al-QAEDA. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's not a gray area. There's nobody who denies that. In fact, Trump says about him, he had a rough past. This guy right here, he had a rough past. Let me tell you, very, very rough past. So, quite an admission. And now he's welcomed into the White House as if, 9/11 didn't happen, as if we didn't fight a war on terror against these people for decades and decades. And when you get even into more specifics about this guy, it's even more terrifying. So I actually didn't know this, but apparently, so he had fought in Iraq and he was planting roadside bombs, or at least that's how the story goes. And so he very well may have the literal blood of dead Americans on his hands, mind you. And he was captured and he was sent to Abu Ghraib, which is the notorious torture prison. That's where all the famous pictures came out of with U.S. soldiers torturing people who were there. So, may have directly killed Americans, fought in Iraq, was at Abu Ghraib. When he got out, he was one of the founders, I believe, of this group called Al-Nusra Front. And Al-Nusra Front, for those of you who don't know, in the early days of the Syrian civil war, you did have some factions of the resistance, the rebels, who were viewed as relatively moderate, right? They were just regular people who were partaking in this revolution. The Free Syrian Army was one of those groups, the FSA, the Free Syrian Army. Then as time went on and the fighting kept going, all the normal people sort of fled Syria, and you had extremists fill the vacuum. And al-Nusra was literally, officially a branch of Al-QAEDA, and al-Jilani was one of the leading figures in that. And so he was directly fighting against the Syrian government. Now, you might say, well, holy fuck, how the hell are we allied now with Al-QAEDA, a guy who was formerly Al-QAEDA, who now runs the country? Well, the answer is very simple. It's from the mindset of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So the reason why the U.S. supported overthrowing Assad is because Assad is an ally to, or was an ally to, Russia and Iran. And so the United States would rather have somebody run Syria who is a literal jihadist, a fundamentalist, extremist Muslim. They'd rather have a literal jihadist in there than a secular government that is more aligned with Russia and Iran. And that's how we are where we are. And by the way, the U.S. has a long history of doing stuff like this. Even under Barack Obama, they funded the Syrian rebels to try to topple Assad. Many of them were Islamic extremists. We had many stories of them beheading people, for example, and the money and the weapons kept flowing. CIA money, CIA weapons kept flowing. In fact, there was a time where we were funding both sides of the war in Syria, different groups on both sides of the war in Syria. How fucking crazy is that? And then, of course, the idea in general to have the West fund Al-QAEDA, that a lot of people don't know this, but that dates back to Ronald Reagan. That dates back to the Cold War and the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan and they were fighting in Afghanistan, and the U.S., because of the Cold War mindset, we said, hey, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So to weaken the Soviet Union, let's arm the resistance fighters in Afghanistan. Well, the resistance fighters were the Mujahideen, and that included Osama bin Laden. In fact, you could go back. There are actual like newspaper clippings. I believe the Independent, the British newspaper, in one of their articles, there's a picture of Osama bin Laden. They call him like a freedom fighter or resistance fighter or something like that. And so, I mean, there's a whole, there's a history here and there's a track record here. And now, of course, the U.S. is buddy-buddy with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, most of the hijackers on 9/11 came from Saudi Arabia. When you want to talk about like radical madrasas spreading fundamentalist Islam, where do you think they come from? Saudi Arabia. It's that particular version of Salafist or Wahhabi Islam. And so we've always had a track record of aligning ourselves with the most extreme Muslims. Ironically, as Republicans pretend like, oh, we're opposed to Muslims, we're opposed to extremist Muslims. And, if they were, maybe they'd say something against Trump having a literal former Al-QAEDA member in the White House. Which, by the way, does anybody really know? He's done this whole, like, rebrand. Does anybody really fucking believe this? Right? Like, in 2016, he split from al-Nusra and he started this other group. And the story goes that that's when he became de-radicalized. Well, the fact that he continued to wage a war to overthrow the Syrian government, I don't know. Does that strike you as de-radicalized? That he was literally, up until like a fucking year ago, a guy with a gun rampaging through cities and stealing territory? The fact of the matter is, I don't think the U.S. cares. I don't think the U.S. cares if he's a jihadist. They don't. Because at the end of the day, what does Trump want? Trump wants control of the oil in Syria. Trump wants a strategic alliance with Syria. Trump wants a Syria that is going to be pro-Israel, right? Pro-Israel against Iran. And that's what you're going to get with basically a former jihadist. A lot of people don't know this, but there were allegations, and with plenty of evidence to back it up, that ISIS and Al-QAEDA, they made a point of not attacking Israel. Because to them, again, the enemy, my enemy is my friend, and the bigger enemies to them, it's Iran. Iran is the bigger enemy. The Shias are a bigger enemy than Israel, the Jews in Israel, effectively. And so, I mean, look at how disgusting this is. Look at how grotesque it is. Can you imagine if I told you in 2001 or 2002 that we're going to have a President Donald Trump, insane, and he's going to welcome Al-QAEDA into the White House in 2025? I mean, there's no way you would listen to that and be like, oh yeah, I'm sure that'll happen. I'm sure that's something that'll exist. Like, fucking, of course not. That's insane, but here we are. And again, not a single person on the right will tell you the truth and speak up. Not a single person will say, Zoran's a good guy trying to do good things, and Al-Jilani in the White House, who Trump's buddy-buddy with and making deals with, that fucking guy, he's a problem. He's a piece of shit. He probably literally has beheaded people, and here he's fucking shooting the shit with Trump and shaking hands and making business deals. It just goes to show you, next time the U.S. tries to pretend that we're holier than thou, we're more moral, and like, oh, the reason we're attacking Venezuela is because they're killing Americans. First of all, they're not. Second of all, you were shaking hands with a guy who we know killed Americans. You welcomed him in the White House. He's in a fucking Al-QAEDA. So the next time they try to hit you with some fucking holier than thou moral crusading bullshit, the war on terror, the war on drugs, or whatever, just know it's all garbage. It's all nonsense. It's all bullshit. None of it is true. If they're willing to shake hands with an Al-QAEDA guy, they're willing to cut deals with an Al-QAEDA guy, basically, as long as you are subservient to U.S. corporate interests and billionaire interests, then you're our buddy. Then you're our buddy. And by the way, you can keep torturing people. You can keep killing people. Right now, there's allegations that the new Syrian government is doing fucking pogroms and shit of different minority groups within Syria. So, but you don't hear much about that, do you? You don't hear much about that. So, shit, man. Just so disturbing. And again, this should prove to you how unserious and how ridiculous MAGA is, that they were just doing the whole everybody forgot 9/11 and fucking look at the radical Islamist fucking Zoran. All that's total bullshit. But then you have a literal Al-QAEDA member shaking hands with Trump in the White House, and they have nothing negative to say about it. These are the biggest frauds on planet Earth, and it's never been more clear. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.